But as you know, as I'm glued to the TV, and you know, I'm trying to figure out like just what's even going on, like how is this happening? And sometimes it's like, you know, I gotta turn the TV off because it's like it's so overwhelming.
A federal prison, concrete walls, strict routines, and a legal battle that has transformed the story of one of music's most powerful figures. The contrast is difficult to ignore. The man who once controlled rooms filled with celebrities now has very little control over his surroundings. The luxury lifestyle that once defined his public image has been replaced by the restrictions of federal custody. And according to the material in the original report, the adjustment was anything but easy. The story describes his movement into federal custody as a dramatic transition from a mansion-filled lifestyle to a prison environment where wealth and celebrity don't carry the same power they once did. Because being famous inside prison can actually create a completely different kind of attention. Some people may recognize the celebrity. Others may see the celebrity as a target. And according to reports discussed in the source material, concerns about Diddy's safety began circulating after his arrival. The question was no longer simply how long he would remain behind bars.
Could have that opportunity just like everybody else.
I mean, he actually caught HIV, like having like a lot of women.
Oh yeah, let's just go down the rabbit hole of all of his sins.
I'm just saying.
You want to know what's wild about that though? He faced that head up.
He did.
And he didn't stop. And he didn't stop doing what he's done.
He an advocate. Now he did that. And
period. Listen to me. He faced that head up. How many dudes is running around undetectable? G.
Come on.
In the game.
Man.
Because I could tell you 20 right now that I could name, rattle off.
Could connect a powerful executive to almost anyone in Hollywood. Inside, that same phone has limited power. Outside, problems could be handled by teams of lawyers, security personnel, and publicists. Inside, every movement happens according to someone else's rules. And
at the federal court building here in New York City, where PD has just been sentenced to 50 months in prison. So that's 4 years and 2 months in prison. He'll also have to serve 5 years of supervised release and pay a fine of $500,000. And that's related to his related offences that he was found guilty of at trial a couple of months ago. Offences relating to his freak-offs, or hotel nights as he called them, with his former girlfriends and male escorts. We heard from the music mogul for the first time at the court pleading with the judge for mercy, to give him a second chance, apologising to his victims and describing his actions as disgusting, shameful and sick.
Thinner. Older. More exhausted. And naturally, the internet began asking questions. Was it simply the result of prison life? Was it stress? Was it the loss of his previous lifestyle? Or was something else happening behind the scenes? That's where the story takes its darkest turn. Because once speculation about his health began circulating, the story moved beyond prison conditions and into something far more personal. And some of the claims spreading online were extremely serious. But before we get into those claims, there's one thing that needs to be understood. A rumor is not the same thing as a verified medical fact. And that distinction becomes crucial in the next chapter. Because what started as people noticing a change in Diddy's appearance soon turned into a wave of speculation.
Overlooks the river. Floor I was on was the dormitory floor, which was low-level security inmates, and they were in bunk beds spread out throughout the floor. Because I was there longer than a week, I was able to get commissary a couple times. I had use of the computer and the phone. Other than that, there was barely anything to do. Just stuck on this unit all day long.
But I got the chance to come home from MDC, so the things that I experienced are fresh. You know, I didn't forget them. And I would always say, because, man, like, it's nothing that I've ever experienced before. I've experienced being in a cell on lockdown and not being fed. I've experienced where they cut the air off and we're in there as two grown men. You know, our cells are basically a bathroom.
What was your daily life like in the Fed prison? Because Feds is different from state.
Pretty much different. Constant lockdown, constant stabbing. They are like very, very, very high and strict on respect. They go to PC, a lot of them, because they know if you go out there, they're gonna kill you. Everybody have a knife. When you first get there, when I first got to the USP, the first thing they hit me when I came out there, he said, "Hey, what's up, Trav?" He like, "Man, look, come on in my room, bro." I said, "What's up, man? Keep this knife on you." Everybody got one. He said, "Boy, this is your driver's license right here. Keep this knife on you."
Is that considered a shank?
No, a knife.
A real knife?
Real knife.
Where y'all get real knives from?
The police officer bring
Constant interaction, entertainment, and communication, isolation represents another dramatic shift. No parties.
No crowds. No entourage. No luxury. Just time.
Time to think. Time to wait. And time to confront everything happening outside. But while the reported confrontation was creating headlines, something else was happening at the same time. Photos from Diddy's court appearances were fueling another wave of speculation. People noticed that he appeared thinner and more worn down. The source says some people attributed that to the prison diet and the sudden loss of his previous lifestyle. But then more serious health rumors began circulating online. And this is where the story needs another warning. The source discusses HIV-related speculation, but it does not establish such a diagnosis as a verified fact. The claim should therefore remain exactly what the source presents it as, speculation and allegation. That didn't stop the internet from running with it. And once a rumor becomes viral, it can become almost impossible to contain. But while people were focused on what might be...
Could have that opportunity just like everybody else.
I mean, he actually caught HIV, like having like a lot of women.
Oh yeah, let's just go down the rabbit hole of all of his sins.
I'm just saying.
You want to know what's wild about that though? He faced that head up.
He did.
And he didn't stop. And he didn't stop doing what he's done.
He an advocate. Now he did that. And
period. Listen to me. He faced that head up. How many dudes is running around undetectable? G.
Come on.
In the game.
Man.
Because I could tell you 20 right now that I could name.
Part of the wider conversation. But there is a dangerous side to stories like this. Once speculation starts, one rumor can become another rumor, and eventually people can begin repeating unverified claims as though they were established facts. That's why the health discussion needs to be handled carefully. The original material mentions claims involving HIV and references individuals who had previously made allegations about Diddy. But the source does not provide verified medical evidence establishing such a diagnosis. So the real story isn't that a diagnosis has been confirmed. The real story is how quickly speculation can spread when a celebrity's appearance changes under intense public scrutiny. And there was another factor. Prison itself can dramatically affect a person's appearance. The loss of familiar food, private chefs, regular routines, privacy, and normal freedom can change someone's physical appearance. Stress can do the same. So while social media searched for dramatic explanations, there were much simpler possibilities that could also explain visible changes. But then the reported confrontation inside prison gave people another reason to watch closely.
A phone call yesterday that Diddy was placed in solitary confinement because he beat up a man. I was told, literally the phone call was, hey, man out. He was placed in solitary confinement yesterday, July 23rd, around 4 p.m. And he'll be there for at least 30 days is what I was told. I reached Diddy's team. At the time, they knew I was calling, but they still trying to figure it out. They said that they don't know either way, but they didn't dispute my phone call.
What happened though?
So all that I know and all that was mentioned, I don't know every detail. Literally though, I said why. They said, sometimes people think that they can play with him, and I don't know if it's because of all of the reporting around the case or if it's because he's a B and they think that he's used to being like protected. But I was told people don't think that. And
I told people 1,000,001 times.
Yesterday
Diddy
he
is
had to
not
demonstrate.
A sucker.
Allegedly.
We laugh at Diddy and all that, but Diddy's not a sucker. I've seen Diddy grab people in clubs like with security there. Diddy's no sucker. Like Diddy's he's
but acquitted him of the more serious charges involving racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking. That means the legal fight isn't simply about what the public believes happened. It's about what prosecutors proved, what the jury decided, what the sentencing judge considered, and what appellate courts may ultimately determine. The defense was seeking a faster decision because the projected release timeline discussed in the source was April 2028. But that date was not the end of the story, because another development was about to hit Diddy from a completely different direction. One of the industry's most influential figures was gone, and his death raised an uncomfortable question. Who was left to stand beside Diddy now? For years, Clive Davis had represented something bigger than a record executive. He represented access, influence, experience, and a connection to the world Diddy had spent decades building. Then came the news of his death, and suddenly another pillar of Diddy's old world had disappeared. The timing couldn't have been more dramatic, because as Diddy fought his legal battle from behind prison walls, the network that once surrounded him appeared to be changing. And that brings us to the next chapter.
They seized cases and cases of the kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs. More than 1,000 bottles altogether.
All the baby oil bottles Diddy was hiding just got recovered from his Los Angeles mansion, and we got it all on camera. First off, let's start by saying Diddy had over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and Astroglide just in that mansion, and this is just one photo out of many. Here, you can see the library mentioned by the Homeland Security agent during his testimony against Diddy. This here is Diddy's nightstand, right next to his bed. If you think there's a lot of Astroglide there, wait till you see this next one. You're gonna be shocked. In this photo, it's all the Astroglide bottles still in boxes in his garage. They also found a backpack full of...
He was dealing with the brutality of life on the inside. A massive blow was...
Imagine being separated from the world you built. Then imagine watching important figures from that world disappear one by one. The people who once answered your calls may no longer be available. The people who once defended you may begin protecting themselves. And the industry that once celebrated you may now be watching from a distance. The source describes this as a growing loss of support around Diddy. But while the emotional story was unfolding, the legal story was becoming even more complicated. His defense team was challenging the sentence. The argument centered partly on the use of so-called acquitted conduct, the idea that conduct related to charges for which a defendant was not convicted could still influence sentencing. The source explains that Diddy had been convicted of transporting people across state lines for prostitution-related offenses, while the jury acquitted him of the more serious charges of sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy. That distinction changes the entire legal conversation, because public opinion can focus on the allegations. But sentencing is governed by legal rules. And the defense wanted the appellate courts to reconsider how the sentence had been calculated. The stakes were enormous.
Mr. Davis, you were a major influence on the career of P. Diddy. Have you spoken to him since the federal raid? You were a major influence on his career. Have you spoken to Sean Combs? Any comment, Mr. Davis? What do you make of the allegations against P. Diddy? Any comments about Diddy? He credits you as one of his mentors.
Breaking news from the world of entertainment. Legendary record executive Clive Davis has died. The music industry titan helped sign massive artists like Barry Manilow, Pink Floyd, shaped the career of Whitney Houston famously, even the boss, Bruce Springsteen. Davis was 94 years old.
In court. The source itself presents these accounts as allegations and testimony, rather than proof of every claim being made online. And that distinction matters because the more complicated the story becomes, the easier it is for fact and speculation to blur together. Meanwhile, Diddy remained behind bars. And the question became bigger than his prison sentence. What happens to an empire when its founder can't run it? Does it survive? Does it fracture? Do former allies return? Or does everyone move on? The source ultimately paints a picture of a man whose old world has been dramatically disrupted. But there was still one major question hanging over everything. What happens when the legal battle reaches its next decisive moment? Because if the defense succeeds, the timeline could change. If it fails, April 2028 becomes the date everyone watches. And either way, the final chapter hasn't been written yet. There was a time when Diddy's future seemed almost impossible to imagine without music, business, celebrity events, and enormous influence. Now the central date discussed in the source is much simpler. April, that's the projected release timeline mentioned in the material.
Open to hearing what has happened to me. People weren't ready to hear it 20 years ago. My name is Adria Cherie Marcy English, and I was hired in the early 2000s to be a go-go dancer at Diddy's private white parties. I looked up to Diddy. He was an icon. He was innovative. I had dreams and goals to be in the entertainment industry. And so when I got the opportunity to dance at the white parties, I really took it seriously. The first time I met him, he was very nice. I had special talent, special skill. They liked my energy. So it was a very great experience initially. After about the second or third party is when I got asked to do extra things, more than dancing at the private white parties. It was more mingling more and being available if they wanted to participate in extras, I should say.
When you said that they started asking you to participate in extras, what do you mean?
He would bring me to people. Diddy would sit me with certain people and for me to entertain them. There were private areas and private rooms of the house that, I had to walk people to, and then, I was like...
essay incidents. The first, April alleges she went to meet with Diddy at a bar in Soho. He introduces her to a female friend of his. She remembers having a few sips of her drinks, and they all left for a hotel nearby, and she just had this feeling of uneasiness in the hotel room. She remembers laying in bed when Diddy forced himself on top of her. She leaves, and she told herself she would never talk to Diddy again, but he continues love bombing her and telling her how advantageous her life will be, her career will take off as long as Diddy is on her side. So, she's studying to get into the fashion world, which he is a big prominent figure of at that time.
And that creates a fascinating question. If Diddy eventually returns to the outside world in 2028, what exactly will he be returning to? Will his companies still have the same influence? Will the entertainment industry welcome him back?
Thrived with a reputation that preceded him, and not all of it was bad for his social standing inside. A bizarre phenomenon began to emerge, something the streets are calling jail groupies. Believe it or not, some inmates are reportedly fighting over the chance to be in his inner circle. There are stories.
The constant spotlight, the feeling of being untouchable, all of it has been replaced by court hearings, prison rules, legal arguments, and an uncertain future. It could come from a courtroom, a filing, an appellate decision, or an official statement that changes what everyone thought they knew. Until then, there is one question that remains unanswered. Will April 2028 mark the beginning of Diddy's comeback, or simply the next chapter of a story that has already changed the entertainment industry forever? The answer isn't in the rumors. It's in what happens next. And if the past few years have shown anything, it's that this story is far from over.
They tried to convince a panel of judges that the convicted rapper should be released immediately because the judge that sentenced him relied on things that Combs was not convicted of.
The evidence and the arguments just reaffirms in this case that that the evidence that the judge was relying on is totally separate and in fact was acquitted conduct.
The thing is, though, up until last year, judges actually were allowed to consider what is known as acquitted conduct that you heard the defense there talk about. Remember, last year sentenced Combs to 4 years and 2 months in prison. That was after a jury convicted Combs of transporting people across state lines but they acquitted him of the most serious charges of and conspiracy. We don't know when the judges are going to make a decision on this appeal, but the defense wants it done as fast as possible because Diddy is set to be released from prison in April of 2028.